All right, good morning, everyone. And extra good morning for those of you that are virtual in other time zones. I would like to call the March 27th ICC Fire Service Membership Council meeting to order. Carl, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure thing. Second. All right, Chief Reed is here. Tim Diehl is here. Brian Adams. Rick Boisford is out on spring break with his family.
I'm here.
Chief Buxton is here. Marshall Drake.
Yes, sir.
Believe that Marshall Farley is going to join us this morning. Chief Hyde, I haven't seen him. Andy King, have not seen him. Chief Lane, have not seen him. Jonathan Lund.
Chief Lane, Carl, virtual.
Oh, gotcha, brother. Hey, you just bumped on. I hear you. Thank you. Chief Lane is with us. So Jonathan Lund is here. Larry Medina. Chief Medina. Marshall Nelson. Marshall Porter, I don't believe I've seen him. Chief Swarthout. Mark Wassom.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'd like to get into just directly into the agenda for the moment and introduce our guest presenter this morning, Mr. Ray Obraki. Thank you very much. He is going to be talking about vacant dwellings confronting the danger. So Ray, we will turn it right over to you.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 sec.
Okay, I think most of the people in here, many at least know me. My name is Ray Obraki. I'm the manager of fire service relations for the American Wood Council. This presentation has absolutely nothing to do with wood construction or wood products at all. It's about some recent fires that occurred, one in Baltimore, one in St. Louis. Before I was with the American Wood Council, I was with the Baltimore City Fire Department.
1 sec. All I'm going to do, I need to broadcast your slides for the folks online too. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to share my screen with them too.
Sure. Well, I did 23 years with the Baltimore City Fire Department. I was the fire marshal for Baltimore City. I retired as the assistant fire chief of the department. I retired and went to the city of Rockville, Maryland, a small town right outside of DC. Was chief building official. In fact, Timmy was the fire marshal there when I was the chief building official. And then I went with the American Wood Council after a short stint in Prince George's County, Maryland, as the chief building inspector. I'm also a licensed attorney in Maryland, so I come at this issue from a building official angle, a fire official angle, and a lawyer. Now I can't advance the slides.
You should be able to. No, sorry about that. Go ahead. Nothing, huh?
Oh, there we go.
I got
Just a disclaimer. Okay, and January the 13th of this year, there was a fire in the 5900 block of Cote Avenue in Lewis. The place was built in 1895. It's been vacant since 2004. It was condemned by the city of St. Louis in 2019. They had a fire there, and they had several fires there before. They had multiple code violations. So the engine company shows up, they go in, they knock the first floor, they start to go to the second floor to check for occupants. And they noticed that the heat and the fire was too intense. So they told everybody to bail out. And before they could bail out, firefighter Olson was killed by a collapse of the roof and the second floor. The owner was an out-of-state owner, lived in Arkansas. The place has been cited, like I said, previous fires. And, the building collapse, one firefighter killed. In Baltimore City, 11 days after St. Louis, there was a fire at 2005 South Stricker Street. This building was built in 1900. It's been vacant since 2004. Oh, I forgot to tell you, St. Louis lists 10,000 vacant dwellings. So the 10,000 list is probably 30,000. They had multiple code violations on this as well. I had an out-of-state owner.
Hey, Ed, please mute your mic.
There was a serious fire there in 2015 that actually sent 3 firefighters to the emergency room. It was a building collapse. What had happened is they went in, they knocked the first floor, if that doesn't sound familiar, and they went to the second floor when the building partially collapsed. It took them at least an hour to get the first firefighters out, and it took them 4 hours to get Lieutenant Bertram out. But Lieutenant Bertram, Kelsey Sadler, and Kenneth Lacayo were all killed. And a fourth John McMaster went to the shot trauma. 3 firefighters killed. So the similarities in these 35, in these 2 fires are stark. Both involved collapses. An old dwelling. Both of them were over 100 years old. Both were vacant for many, many years. Both had previous fires. Both had absentee landlords who lived out of state. Both killed firefighters. So here's the problem with many of these vacants. The fire departments are left to deal with them. They are bought or inherited. They are rented out until they no longer become profitable. And then these owners simply walk away from them. The property falls into disrepair because they are an out-of-state owner. So they're not there to regularly check on the dwellings. You have, even though there's codes about boarding, they're frequently unsecured. And even when they board them in good faith, if they're out of state, people pry the boards off, or they arrange it so it looks like it's boarded, but they get in and out. They have bad roofs, rotted floor assemblies, because there's water intrusion. I mean, we had ones in Baltimore City where they actually had trees growing out of them. And they're magnets for homeless, for drug use, and various other criminal activities. One time when I was a lieutenant at 8th Engine in West Baltimore, which was the first alarm district that Stricker Street fell into, they had a vacant house that was used to store drugs. And the drug dealers built booby traps in for the police. They weren't meant for us. They were meant for the police. I went in the front door, it had a false floor. I fell through it. But luckily, I got jammed in the hole. I didn't fall clean through it because at the bottom of the hole were 2x4s with nails sticking out of them. So if I could fall through it, I'd been impaled on the nails. They had little counterbalances you see in windows on the steps. So when you went up the steps, you would slip and you would go right down the steps. There was 5 of us went through emergency room that day. They have traditional solutions every community has. One, these right violations. You board them, you clean and board them, you condemn them, you can seize the property, you can sell them at tax sale. These are traditional solutions that seek to hold the owners accountable. You can demolish the place. But there's barriers to all of this accountability. One is transparency of title. I'm going to go into each one of these separately. Transparency of title is the big issue. Service or process. You have to serve someone with a notice of violation. There's owner apathy, they still care. You have properties that literally have 0 value whatsoever. You have judgment-proof owners, so even if you write a violation, you're never going to collect on the judgment. There's an overtaxed judicial system, and there's limited budget for a lot of these solutions. So we talk about transparency of title and service. Okay, a lot of these dwellings are owned by an LLC, a limited liability company. Okay, so if an LLC owns it, they don't have to list who are the members of the LLC. So you never know who owns these. When I was the fire marshal in the city, we wrote a ton of violations, but then I'd go to our tax database and it would be an LLC. It would list a resident agent. Every LLC has to list a resident agent, but they don't have to update the information every year. So we had resident agents that had been dead for 20 years. We had resident agents that were attorneys who said, I don't have to tell you who's in the LLC, I'm not going to tell you. So we could never get to the people to serve them. So that they were denied their due process. Due process is just a fancy legal term for notice and opportunity. Everybody's entitled notice of their violation and an opportunity to defend themselves. But if we can't serve them, we can never get the legal process started. And that's why transparency of title was a big problem. And I talked about service, even if you had a mailing address on them, and a lot of the LLCs were a PO box, they would just ignore the violations. They're out of state, they don't care. Owner apathy of value of property. You have judgment-proof owners, okay, because it is a limited liability corporation. So even if you could find them, even if you could haul them into court, the only assets in that LLC would be that worthless house. So you can't go after the private assets. You can only go after the assets in the LLC. And I'm telling you, slumlords will make a separate LLC for every single house they own. The tax sale, you just want to buy it. It's not worth anything. Now, what they do sometimes is they will, they'll rack up the violation fees and then they'll sell off that debt to people who will buy it and try to collect it. But even then, like I said, with the LLC, condemnation and seizure. Okay, you can condemn it, you know, and then you can seize the property. But now it's a city property. It's a city problem. And now the city has to pay to have it forwarded and maintained. The largest holder of vacant dwellings in Baltimore City is the city of Baltimore itself. And that's why I've had a hard time trying to get any reforms passed through the city council, because the city housing department doesn't want to be held accountable for their own vacant properties. An overtaxed judicial system and a limited budget. Okay, courts, believe me, in St. Louis and in Baltimore, they have a lot better things to do than deal with slumlords. And it's an overburdened docket, and there's no dedicated docket. There is a dedicated docket for rent court because they don't want, there's so many rent issues. They have actually a dedicated court just for landlord-tenant issues. There's no docket for absentee owner issues. It expends city resources, and the seizure process is long and burdensome because it's what is called an in personam proceeding, which means you have to serve the person. You're actually going after the person itself. Demolition is extraordinarily expensive. Okay, Baltimore City has 16,000 registered vacant dwellings. I guarantee you it's double that at least. The average cost to demo a dwelling, a row house, is $15,000 to $25,000. And that's if it's not next to an occupied one that you have to shore up. They have to shore up a property on either side. That means $50,000. Now times that by 30,000 properties, it's a lot of money. And when you, even if you try to shore it up, it still endangers the adjoining property during the process. Now, the fire department, has solutions. They tried to have solutions, but you have to realize this isn't a fire department problem. We deal with it. It's a societal problem. It is a societal issue because it blights communities all over the place. And like I said, they're magnets for crime, magnets for homeless, but firefighters are the ones being killed in these things. So they have placarding, and NFP 1 Appendix E has a placarding standard. I think everybody knows the ISC box with the acronym here. They try to spotlight it, but you see it here spray painted on right there. Another solution is you can change tactics. No entry, where people trap. Now, here, this is examples of NFPA and the ICC versions of placarding standards. Now, I'm not saying placarding is a bad thing. I just don't know how effective it is. At 3:30 in the morning, when I was in West Baltimore, if I came up to a vacant dwelling on fire, I'm not looking for signs on walls. I'm not looking for placards. I mean, how many times did you see a top finder sticker at a window? I really think there was a top yet. I mean, the way homes turn over in Baltimore City, that placard could have been there for years, or save my pet sticker, Mr. Firefighter. You're just not looking for stickers. But I do think there is a better alternative to placarding. That is better reporting and populating the CAD system. Most of the CAD systems can handle an enormous amount of information, and they're really useful except we don't have the time or the energy to populate it. So fire service reporting is notoriously poor, and most places don't utilize the full CAD. And, you know, I can talk for 2 hours, all the reasons why fire department reporting is, they usually underreported or misreported. And it's a whole host of reasons. I mean, everybody has been to a firehouse where it had a list of the fewest clicks you can do on your computer to get the NIFRS report to go in. So, you know, you just don't have the time or the energy to put in all the information. But where there are challenges, there are opportunities. And this is sort of an out of the box sort of idea. Hire civilians to work on shift to do all the reporting. Why doesn't the fire officer have to do the reporting? You could have, they wouldn't do it for EMS runs or pots of food, but for working fires, what would be the harm in having a civilian show up, collect the data, a trained data collector show up, do accurate reporting on building construction, you know, and report it, and then have them populate the CAD. And then when you're responding, that information will either be broadcast to you or on your computer or both. Now none of the firefighters of 14 Engine knew about the fire that occurred in that same building in 2015 that injured 3. It was a different shift. It was a different group of folks. And it was 7 years earlier. The fire in St. Louis, the same thing. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have somebody on the crew that day that was on the original fire years ago, that's just dumb luck. This takes luck out of it. And it would do a lot of things other than give firefighters proper warning. It would we'd finally be getting credit for all of the stuff we actually do. Because I think we underreport, and it hurts us when it comes to budget time. So the change in tactics, both in the Baltimore City fire, there was a report of people trapped, and there was an occupied place next door. Because I hear, why'd they go in, why'd they go in? And you can clearly hear on the dispatch, report of people trapped. And in fact, they found a person a couple blocks away burned. They suspect that that's the guy who started the fire, but he was burned, so there was obviously someone in there. Not just something went in, because they couldn't have known that. And it collapsed just 5 minutes after they arrived. In St. Louis, the fire chief was asked why they went in there, and he said they frequently search vacant, go into vacant dwellings because the homeless go in there for warmth. And both of these fires occurred in January in St. Louis and in Baltimore. In fact, I have an executive performance award on my wall at home for me and another firefighter pulling 2 people out of a vacant dwelling that was on fire. So basically, I mean, I don't know how you tackle this one, how you tell firefighters not to go in when there's a report of people trapped. I think it's impractical. I think they're always going to go in. But there are legal changes that are needed. Okay, and these would be meaningful changes to hold folks accountable. Have a dedicated docket, as I told you about, like they have for landlord tenant court or drug court or different ones, family courts. Have a dedicated docket that does nothing but deal with these properties. You do what they call an in rem process. I told you the process right now in Maryland is in personam, where you have to serve the person. It has to do with jurisdiction over a person. This is jurisdiction over property. So the service requirements are much lower. Transparency of title. Make them list the members of their LLC on the deed with the name of the LLC. So at least you know, and make them have a current mailing address. I used to look up these places in the tax page, and the mailing address for the vacant property and the vacant property itself. If you're not going to live there, then if it's not going to be your primary residence, then you have to list your actual primary residential address. Alternate means of service. If you are going to do an in personam process, there has to be an alternate way of serving them, either posted on the internet or something to where you don't physically have to hand someone a piece of paper and say you're served. And the law does allow for that. Expedite the seizure process. And you do that through the in rem process. You know, if you're going to seize these, it takes years to seize them. Right now, you have to get, if you get into court, you usually get into court on the debt issue first, and then you seize it, even if the person doesn't show up, and it takes a couple of years. I said add criminal penalties to a place. You have to scope it so you don't catch people that are trying to be good actors that aren't. If you had a fire in a row house and you don't fix it up, and it's another fire and it hurts or kills somebody, there should be criminal penalties for that, for the members of the LLC. And there's actually legal precedents for holding property owners accountable criminally. You look at lead paint abatement. People have gone to jail for faking that or not doing it. For people setting booby traps for criminals, they're called spring gun cases, where a person was getting robbed and set up a trap. So when the person broke in, it shot the person. There's public nuisance criminal statutes for properties that are repeated drug houses. So there is precedence for criminal penalties. So I'd say you scoped it properly and said, if the owner lives out of state and they don't check on the property, if you had multiple violations, if the place has had a fire and nothing's been done and has a second fire. I always said a city row house are really built well, and they can take one fire, but they can't take two, and they certainly can't take three. So probate reform, okay? A lot of these places are inherited. You know, there's my grandfather had the property, and they're doing the disrepair. He's 90 years old, lives out of state. He dies. I inherit this property that I've never seen before, never dealt with before, and I just don't do anything with it. And I don't care if the city sees it because it's not worth any money. The probate reform needed is they should not be able to settle that estate until that property is dealt with. So if you inherit that property, you either disclaim that property and gift it to the city, or you take it and you get it up to standards to either demolish it or renovate it. So these are some of the ideas that, legal ideas that I think need to happen. So just to wrap it up, everybody knows vacant dwellings are a problem, but they're a societal issue, a social issue, not just a fire department issue. Although, unfortunately, fire service are the end users of these death traps. Traditional solutions have not worked for all the reasons that I mentioned. We can't demo our way out of this issue. There's just too many of them, and it's too costly. There are legal challenges, but there are opportunities out there. And I think the fire department has challenges and opportunity as well when it comes to enhanced reporting. But the political will is the biggest challenge, because I told you, Baltimore City is the largest property holder of vacant properties in Baltimore City, #1. Politicians really love the placarding solution because it's the easiest one, and it looks good and it feels good, and it makes them seem like they're doing something when they're not doing anything at all. And nobody's going to fight that. You know, every other one of the reforms I meant, somebody's going to have it. These are just the pictures. I'll take any questions if I can ask. Yeah, Chief.
So, I'm gonna be the devil here. Never been a firefighter. There's a point, even I understand, there's nothing in there to save. If you breathe superheated air, your lungs are burnt out and you're gone. So when is the fire service going to go to the European model and understand the surround and drown and get the heck out of Dodge? Okay. So I think part of our problems are brought upon ourselves. I mean, there's property owners that try to do the right thing. As you say, they board it up, they secure it. And then there's individuals who bring this havoc upon themselves by breaking in, trespassing in the properties. But the fire service has got to learn to get smarter itself and understand there is nothing in there to save and quit trying to be, I guess, a superhero, and understand the protection of the property is really the property adjacent to the fire. So I think the fire service is its own enemy in the fact that we continue to try to think that we can save something in there that is not in there to save because it's already expired.
I would say that in the case of a single family home, you're probably right. With row houses, I mean, if you can't surround and drown a row house, and you have to get and extinguish the fire at some point, because even if you pull the ceilings and the walls on either side and stand there, it's going to find its way across, even if it's through a cornice or even those row houses have common, I don't want to say attic spaces because they're not big enough to be attics, but void spaces above the roof, below the roof deck, but above the firewalls. So, you know, it's a cultural issue, obviously, but I don't know how the optics would look if the fire department stood out front and out back of a block of row houses and let it walk down the block and people's actual houses burn, not just. And it's not that the firefighters go into every one. You know, every circumstance is different, and every fire is different. When people ask me, you know, oh, they shouldn't go in those. I said, that's like asking a chess player which chess move is the best chess move you could make. Well, it depends on the situation. There is no best move. It's the best move for the time, the place, the situation. But the other issue, and it has to do with the cultural issue, is there's less fires than it used to be. And the fact that we have a generation of firefighters that have fought less fires are now rising to the rank of captain in chief. They don't have the kind of experience to train younger firefighters in structural firefighting because there's just less fires in a lot of jurisdictions because of improvements in code enforcement and sprinklers and that kind of thing. So I have so many questions. That's all. Yes.
Yeah, one challenge that becomes increasingly frustrating, going back to initial code enforcement and notification of violations, is exactly what you spoke about with the LLCs. And when you see that coming up on either county assessor's records, it kind of puts a stop because you don't know. So can you speak a little bit to strategies or directions that we can find the resident agent name or other areas that we can look at to try to dig a little bit deeper to get a name or get a phone number or something?
Yeah, and this is time consuming. So you would have to, I don't know what the tax base, the database looks like in California. I can speak to Maryland. Maryland has a pretty good taxation based database. So I would go into the real property search and I'd find it's an LLC. And I would take that LLC name and I would go to another link within that where you have, it lists all business entities, either corporations or LLCs or S corps. And then you search that. And then when that comes up, it'll give you the resident agent. It'll also give you the articles of LLC, the partnership agreements and stuff like that. And then you have to look into that if it's in there and then see who signs it. And then you have who's actually the members of the LLC. But like I said, it's, you know, who has the time to sit there and go through that over everything. That's how you do it, at least in Maryland. And I think most, I've never looked at any other state's tax database before, so I don't know what they have.
In California, it's pretty limited. If you see an LLC, there's really not an option to get any deeper unless you're Googling the LLC and trying to find, you know, any kind of link to get to
You
it.
should ask the tax folks because there usually is a database of all business entities. And that's the funny thing about with property ownership. If the LLC owned a coffee shop, they have to list the members in the database and they have to update it every year. But because it's a property, they don't have to do either one of those. And there's no reason why they don't. They just don't.
Okay, thank you.
Christine,
Yes.
Angie Lisi, St. Paul. Couple other things that we've utilized. A lot of times the Secretary of State requires them to register, and that'll give you some, at least some additional contact information to get you started. We've also had a lot of luck with calling the water utility. They always keep a phone number, and so even if it's, you know, if that bill goes to somebody, usually not a corporation. So we've had a lot of luck finding contact information just from calling the water utility. Not always foolproof. The other thing is I called our tax assessors, or, you know, they send out all the tax bills every year, right? And I said, we get, you know, return mail because we use your records. So I know you're getting return mail when you send out all your tax records. What do you use to figure out who actually owns it and where their address is? And there was a different state website I had no knowledge about, and it was every property sale transaction over, I think it's like $1,000. So every property sale transaction is listed on this site. Put in the PIN, it gives you who sold it, who bought it. Sometimes I'll contact the seller and say, do you have contact information? So it is extremely time consuming, but there are ways to do it. Sorry, I entered late, but one of the things I didn't see in here are preventative measures, like cutting the gas, requiring the gas to be cut. Something we do at St. Paul. Been vacant for over a year. The gas has to be either capped or cut, or turned off by the utility. And we use placarding, but we also use placarding with 3 full-time staff who do inspections at most length every 30 days. If there's problems at the property, they'll make it tighter, 2 weeks, even every week, to see and to reboard and to resecure, and to work with that owner to figure out a better solution. But 3 dedicated people in a city of 300,000. But this issue, like you're saying, we don't have a ton of row houses. The solution will look different in a different city. And I'm looking at 20 people in here, and my guess is that every one of your cities handles this issue differently. It's definitely, I think, for the Fire Service Membership Council, an opportunity for best practices, though. Not to give you more.
Thank you.
Yes. Morning, Dan Nichols, New York. I find it coincidental that the IEBC is based upon an original document called the Maryland Smart Code, which was to rehabilitate Baltimore City row house. That document still would not require this building to be sprinklered even if rehabilitated. So I think the problem's a little bit bigger here. The vacant buildings, a city, to Chief Garris's point, in a city where there's more people in fire scenarios in vacant buildings than in occupied buildings, the fire department dynamic, I think, thinks a lot differently because a life is a life, whether they're homeless or whether they live in that building. So it's really an apples and oranges comparison to, like, let's say, a suburban fire department. To placarding, I'll be that person. Placarding is useless, okay, in my opinion. That homeless person or that person that's looking to put a roof over their head in the middle of the day can spend all day, all week, all month getting through your security barriers to get inside, to stay. They have nothing better to do except put a roof over their head for a day like this wonderful Rochester weather we have outside. So welcome to New York. The placard is useless. And in New York State, some jurisdictions do not allow placarding because the real estate board has said that that placard lowers the property values of comparables in neighborhoods. So if you want to solve the problem, it's a social issue. You have to dedicate, and the fire service has to become a partner in the homeless population reduction or providing services with other partners in the local government. This is not about throwing up a placard, I'm sorry. So that code section disappeared out of the code. I'd be the happiest man in the world because I think all it does is it puts liability on first line inexperienced fire officers to say, why didn't you look at that sign at 3:30 in the morning when there's somebody hanging out below them? So.
Online, Ray, Chief Buxton from New Hampshire. Chief, go ahead.
Good morning, Chief. Thank you for your presentation this morning. And I usually sit somewhat quiet during these meetings, but this topic certainly has stirred some conversation this morning. I think to the previous speaker's point, and we talked about the social piece, but I don't know about anybody on this call, and I speak about New England specifically, the code enforcement environment, there needs to be a political will to even get behind that. I can tell you that is probably in my jurisdiction, one of the areas that is spoken on most heavily during the political season, where we need more code enforcement. And then when you start bringing more code enforcement, then the code enforcement people are criticized because they're actually getting out of their offices. So, I think that is a piece of this, is that the ultimate responsibility to society and how that gets brought across, like the code enforcement piece that's really going out and addressing these issues at the grassroots level. Those folks sometimes are even handcuffed from the political front before they can even start. And I think that that's our biggest challenge to even get something started. I think that there's a lot of people that want to do the right stuff with the homeless groups and the fire service and all that stuff. But it really comes down to, you said Baltimore City has 16,000 properties that they own that are vacant. And I think that is, I would assume that's the same there. They don't want to see the change because they don't want to have to make a change themselves. And to the initial speaker at the beginning, where we were talking about fire service culture, and this is somewhat timely, right? Because yesterday we had the anniversary of the Back Bay fire in the city of Boston, where we lost 2 firefighters. That was a unit where you had a tenant that was attempting to do some of the right stuff. They were starting to do some repairs, and they were trying to get this place occupied. Each side of that unit was millions of dollars of real estate. And I'm not putting a price on anybody's life here, but I think the reality to think that the fire service is going to be awarded the opportunity to sit idly by without taking some action is probably not reasonable. And, so I look at the vacant building issue, and it is close because that department is about an hour south of me. But I think the reality is that to just say this is a fire service issue and go to the surround and drown method, that's not going to be, we'll never see that adopted in the American Fire Service as far as I'm concerned. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm the dinosaur in the room.
On the code enforcement issue, I've always said, if you want me to know your priorities, show me your budget, where you spend your money. And that in 1972, American Burning said that fire departments should spend at least 5% of their budget on fire prevention activities, including public education and code enforcement. And I looked at the Baltimore City fire budget, and my budget was less than a penny on the dollar in the fire department budget. It was less than 1%. And that was fire investigation, fire prevention, pub ed, and code enforcement. So, fire chiefs can give lip service, and mayors can give lip service about fire prevention, but the way you actually show it is through your budget. I've said it all the time. Say it again. If you want me to know your priorities, show me your budget, and then I'll tell you what your priorities are. So in code enforcement and budget crunch time is always the first to go because they're behind the scenes. They never makes the paper, but if you close a firehouse, you got to deal with politicians, community activists, neighborhoods. So let's just cut fire prevention, pub ed to the bone, and nobody will be any wiser.
Crystal.
Crystal Sujeski, Cal Fire Office, State Fire Marshal. Is there a common denominator to the fires in these? Is there mostly arson?
Well, I don't want to say they're intentionally set, but I don't know that they're arson. And the difference is that I can intentionally set a fire to keep you warm and not mean to burn the house down. I can intentionally set a fire to burn insulation off copper wire so I can scrap it and not intend to burn the house down. I think in the case of Baltimore, I think it was intentionally set to burn the house. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, there's really no other accidental causes because all these places, they don't have electric, the meter's been pulled, the gas has been shut off and tapped. Because BG&E is Baltimore Gas and Electric is so used to people stealing electric and gas that when somebody becomes vacant, they don't just turn it off. They come out, they pull the meter, cap it, they pull the electrical meter and cut the service loop. So they triple check it. So they're not electrical fires, they're not gas fires. These are intentionally set fires.
Any other questions for Ray? Comments? No one on virtual?
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
No other questions, Richard.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ray, very much.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, we're going to go back into the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, Next is the approval of the minutes for the February 17th virtual meeting. I'm entertaining a motion.
Buxton, motion to accept.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Swarthout, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Great. Motion approved. Thank you. Next item is the work group updates. So for those of you who weren't in attendance in yesterday's in-person meeting, we had some discussion about the work groups for 2022 and the assignments of the various government, membership council governing committee members. And thank you all on the governing committee for adding your name to at least one of the work groups. We found as we were looking through the listing that we're a little bit skewed on a couple of the work groups. We have, can you pull that up?
Will.
So we have a list of the various work groups with who is on it. And what we're finding is we have public awareness has the least number of members, and then member recruitment is right behind that. So we talked yesterday about the encouragement of participation on work groups, and this membership council is so successful because the projects and the goals that we have, we work product and we achieve our goals. And we just want to continue that momentum. And with the distribution of work groups, we're putting a little bit more stress on the smaller work groups. So we're trying to encourage anyone who would like to participate on more than one work group to put your name in. Let Carl, Tim, or I know if you would like to be on an additional work group such as public awareness or membership in addition to what you're on. And I say that at the beginning because we're going into work group reports, and part of that is to talk about your goals and where you see your work group going. And this will give everyone an opportunity to hear what work is being done and decide where you would like to place yourself. If you think that you can have the bandwidth to be on more than one committee, is a big issue, but any kind of participation that you can have would be wonderful. So with that, we're going to go to our work group updates. Member recruitment, did Andy come on? Okay. We'll go down to emerging issues and trends. Mike Desrochers.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the presentation this morning. A lot of those items were spot on, so thank you very much. Our work group continues to hold our monthly meetings, and as Christine says, we welcome participation from anybody. Help us. I thought I'd just mention that the mission of our work group is to scan the environment to see what new issues or trends are occurring that might affect the fire service, and should the fire service membership count? That's basically just a one-liner. That's what our mission is here. We came out with our 2022 goals. I'm just going to go over it real quickly. We're going to try to explore relationships with the Fire Code Action Committee and Building Code Action Committee for new ideas that may need code in the future code. These committees may hear about topics that to the fire service and the fire service membership. An ongoing initiative, which Carl's been a good spokesman for us, is trying to post our stuff on the membership council webpage. That was a 2022 goal. also to increase our work group membership and continue to enhance our relationship with other fire service members. And to expand the work group PowerPoint education program to other partners who contribute to our goals. So an example of this would be last year at the National Association of State Fire Marshals Conference in Vermont. Kelly and I presented a PowerPoint program that showcased what the emerging issue and trend work group does, how it impacts work groups, and that with the ICC Fire Service Membership Council. It was about a 45-minute to an hour PowerPoint program. We got a lot of positive feedback from presenting that program, but basically we are doing like an outreach to try to solicit topics where we could then funnel these down to the other work groups to see whether we just do an educational component, who might be our audience to broadcast whatever the emerging issue and trend topic is.
I can read PDF your presentation. I can if you want to, and then just
we have a few topics right now, and actually I'm gonna add this vacant building issue here to our list because in most states right now, there's a housing crisis, a lack thereof. So maybe it's worth the discussion to see if it could be public educational component maybe down as a topic. Because I think we could have debated this topic all morning here, so see if we can facilitate some discussions. But we have some other like interesting topics that next month in April we'll be taking some action on. So hopefully we can push some of this down to the other working groups, indoor fire pits, robotic storage systems, the napping pods, storage systems. And we understand that some of this stuff is in the codes and being worked on, but this technology and stuff is changing. And some of this we may benefit by reaching out to the fires in some manner to either provide some education or awareness to these emerging issues here. So that's kind of a quick rundown of where we are right now.
Great, thank you. Any questions for emerging issues? All right, public awareness, Steve.
Morning, everybody. Steve Swarthout. As was stated a little bit ago, we are short a few members. So anybody that's interested in what we do, I would certainly appreciate any help. Right now, last year, we were able to meet our 2021 goals. We produced a couple papers that we got from Emerging Trends. We had what I thought was a very successful construction site safety document that we produced. Turned out really nice. We also were able to get something out on the inflatable spray booths, something that we're all dealing with and coming along. This year's goals, we're working on we want to produce an introduction document to the International WOE Code. We started and worked on and presented to ICC some thoughts on our membership committee website, what we would like to see with our website. They have that document, and as Carla stated, they're working on that. We're hoping to get some changes to the website so it's easier for everybody to use and very little more visible. And so that was something we were able to get accomplished done last year. We can continue to work on that with ICC, see if we can get that done. We are working right now on home sprinkler ordinances. We're trying to determine, who has them, how they got them, and that type of stuff. We're hoping to produce a document that'll be easy for somebody to read, and if they're interested and want to start going down the path of doing a sprinkler ordinance, how the different agencies, how different organizations in this country have done it. And so hopefully we'll get that, we're working on that, try to get that done this year. We're also looking at different social media that we can use and how we can highlight the fire membership. LinkedIn being one of them. There's several others. Carl and I are working on that. So that's just another goal of ours for this year. And as Miss Angie mentioned, I guess maybe we're going to be working on best practices for abandoning vacant buildings this year too. So anyway, we'll kind of add that to the list. We meet the second Thursday of every month, 10 o'clock on Pacific Standard Time. And it's a Teams meeting. If you're interested in joining us, kind of hearing our meeting and where we're going, I would really appreciate that. And like I said, we're always looking for volunteers to help us out. We do a lot of exciting things. We've got a history of producing documents and getting stuff out, and we would like to continue that. And to do that, we need help. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for public awareness? Okay, training and education, Mark.
Good morning, everybody. Mark Wassom. I'll just kind of do similar to what was done earlier this morning. I'll go through our goals really quick. The Training and Education Working Group, our mission really is to support the Fire Service Membership Council, developing, promoting, and providing educational, training, and professional development opportunities for our members and the fire service community as a whole. So, to achieve that, our goals are to provide educational opportunities at the annual business meeting. That's one of our goals each year. The past couple of years, it's been a little tough to achieve because we haven't had those opportunities. I know the council's currently trying to determine if moving forward, they're going to have those opportunities at the annual business meeting. I think Carl sent out, Carl, did that just go to our group, the survey about the ABM?
No, that went to everybody, Mark. So
I'd encourage everybody, you should have seen a survey about what to do with or what our preferences would be for the annual business meeting. I'd encourage everybody to do that as Carl has asked us all to do. And I know me personally, I put a lot of comments in there about continuing to have educational opportunities. I think they're beneficial. So I encourage everybody to do that. But that's our primary goal. Some other goals would be to partner with other organizations and stakeholders to provide fire service minded training. We want to collaborate with our other working groups to develop information on emerging trends and to work with public awareness to get those messages out. And then lastly, we want to develop and maintain a list of high quality courses that we can just give upon request, basically. So if a group asks for speakers from our group, we've got a list of stuff that we know is good, and we can give that on fairly short notice. So, long-term goals, we do want to work on professional development for the fire service. So we had a lot of great discussion yesterday in our meeting about just training opportunities, especially maybe 3 shorter types of trainings that new fire inspectors, new fire marshals, and even just fire operations folks as a whole could log in and do. We want to work with the ICC towards that goal. And we've also talked in the past about working with ICC towards a fire service based master code professional. So we don't all have to go become building officials and master code professionals on the building code side of things just to achieve that designation. But anyway, just a couple other updates. Many of you probably saw a survey from me in the past couple of weeks. We're trying to revise our meeting time and date. It wasn't working for folks on the Wednesdays that we were meeting. The survey results indicate that it works best for folks either Monday afternoon or Thursday morning. So we're going to look towards those 2 options with the other goal of not conflicting with the other working groups. So those of us that want to join in on others can still do that. So watch for a notice on that from me pretty quick, but that's probably where it's going to land, likely the first week of the month, Monday afternoon or Thursday morning. Really, I think my only other request is if you get a notice of proposals, a request for presentations at a conference that's related to what we do, please get that to me. I do maintain a list. Tim Diehl sent me a couple of them. I appreciate that. So I'll put those on a list and I'll work with our working group to try to come up with a proposal for those if it makes sense for our group. So otherwise, that's all I've got unless anyone has questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, John, you and I are all central, and all the other members, if they're central, Eastern, just kind of.
Yeah, Christine joins us a lot, and she's Pacific time zone, or is that Western, whatever you call it.
Pacific.
That out there time zone, wherever you are.
So yeah, definitely I pay attention to that. A lot of us are in the central time zone, so that's where I kind of kept the meeting. And honestly, at least in my brain, it's easy to go plus or minus from there. But yeah, we'll make sure it works and it's not like ruining everybody's lunch. And or it can ruin my lunch, I guess, but I don't care.
What's lunch?
Yeah, right. But yeah, we'll work through that, get a time that works. I'll essentially talk to our group now that we've kind of narrowed in on the Monday or the Thursday, and I'll say what works best for everybody and we'll get that going.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for training and education? All right, thank you for those updates. And again, just a reiteration for everyone to consider your own daily workload, but if you have would like to participate on these work groups, especially, again, public awareness, there's a lot of goals that take a bit of time and information and creativity. So be able to join that effort in public awareness and as well. We don't have anyone from membership yet. I don't know if Carl, if you have anything that you can do for membership, or we'll just wait for a future
I do
meeting.
not. I think Gary Farley is going to essentially be the guy on membership, and he's going to be looking for help. So that's what I can
Where we're
offer
at.
at this point.
Okay.
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. All right, next agenda item, the report from officers. We have Director Jim Sayers with us this morning. Good morning. Do you have anything you'd like to report out to the group?
Oh, certainly, we, today, probably one of the most interesting, maybe exciting things we've got going on right now is we just acquired WIN Education, which, if you want to get charged up and be excited about education, listen to Matt Wynn speak for a while. I'm really looking forward to what the energy that he's going to put into that. It comes in with a great reputation, and looking forward to see how that interprets into ICC's education and training programs. I think it's a great deal. The other thing that I'd like to mention, and I don't know if I did in the last meeting or not, but the new partnership with the IAEI, the electrical inspectors, that's another thing where training and certification will come alongside them and be able to, figure out where are we duplicating things, or is it really necessary to have two certification groups for the same person on the same job? Probably not. So maybe some of those things will change and become a little more streamlined. And next week, I'm going to be attending the symposium in Washington, D.C. Several of you are there. John, that's really great to see you in person.
Great.
Any questions? A couple other directors in the room. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have Director Dave Spencer just entered. Good morning.
Didn't hear half a word. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. And we also have Director Randy Metz. Good early morning to you, Randy. Do you have anything else that you'd like to, or anything you'd like to address for the group?
No, Jim covered it quite well. It was probably what was supposed to be a 10-minute presentation, we probably spent about 50 minutes on with Matt. So bringing a lot of energy, and Matt is actually taking over and will be running our learning center for ICC. So I expect a lot of changes, and I really recommend that the Mark Wassom's team on the education and training reach out and touch base with Matt Wynn. I don't know that he is fully versed in the fire service side of training and education, but I think if there's anybody that can help us on the training aspect of what ICC does for the fire service, Matt is probably the right guy. So that's what I'll add.
Great, thank you very much. We also have Director Peterson just entered the room. Hi, good morning. Thank you.
Real quickly, just want to tell you all, thank you for being here. Thank you for your service on this committee. The one thing I do want to say is for years, the board has struggled with staff to make it our fundraising opportunity with ICC available to the membership councils. I served on the membership council before I got on the board of directors. And as a membership council member, I could never participate in the golf tournament or the motorcycle ride that they do. The board has pushed back a little bit, and this next year we have changed the schedule. So we would really hope that you all would be willing to participate in our fundraising events that we plan on having. So we'd encourage you to get involved, attend these social events. They're good opportunities to meet new people from around the country and help out a worthy cause with the ICC Foundation to get our Code of Honor scholarships that help fund new people to the code hearings. So I would just encourage you to take advantage of that. We have made the schedule available so that you can attend your membership council meetings and participate in those. So we encourage you to do so.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I think that's everyone. So report from the chair. I don't have a whole lot because we're talking about a lot of different agenda items. I do just want to thank again those of you who have flown into Rochester or driven into Rochester to attend both yesterday's more informal meeting and then as well as this morning. Part of I think also the successes that we have in the membership council is the ability for us to see each other in person and be able to talk face to face and build that networking and working relationship. So I encourage everyone as we go into our next meeting, in-person meeting in Louisville in September, to please consider the timing as the schedule does come out, to make every effort that you can to be here in person, so that we can be able to see everybody's faces a little bit more than we have today. So understanding that schedules do dictate a lot with what you have going on at home, but certainly appreciate any considerations you can make to attending in person. That's all I had. Report from the vice chair. We'll go to Tim.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to be back in person and be able to put faces and names and everything else. So really my report, I'm just kind of going to go over, as usual, I'm listening to the building membership where I liaison to. Their one committee is the Community Outreach, Continuity and Outreach Committee, where they take the liaisons from all the other membership councils and pretty much have a meeting together. This is where we exchange a lot of good information, find out what the other membership councils are doing, and kind of stay in touch. From that committee has evolved into what they consider the matrix. So it's a matrix of what each of the other membership councils are working on. Most of it is BMC, but the reason I'm kind of stressing this is that you know, I'm gonna be looking for someone to start shadowing me, one of the new members on this committee. Because it is very important. A lot of information gets exchanged from that. And right now, as it sits, this is gonna be my last term. And I've been involved with, I'll put it out there, this is a pet. I was involved right from the beginning of this, and it's become very passionate for me, and that's why I want to make sure it continues to have this, as well as the excellent relationship we have with the building officials. So, you know, it's, here again, it's global, sustainability, major jurisdictions, plumbing, and just some of the items they're working on that are out there. A lot of the documents that are being produced by these other committees are being listed here that we can tag into if we need to. But that's why I just want to put that out there. Like I said, we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday of the group. It got postponed, that's fine. We'll probably be having another meeting next month. Usually we meet every other month. So we sit down and, like I said, I think our biggest issue right now is trying to find a time slot for when these meetings are held, because we do incorporate the global membership council, and they're on much different time zones. At the last meeting, that was kind of brought up as a topic of discussion. So they will be varied a little bit more. But like I said, I just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to be working with Carl to get this updated for ours, to start putting more of our emerging trends on here. And I'm going to throw the vacant houses out there also onto the matrix, because one of the items that major jurisdictions was doing, and it's been a couple of years, 2019, was the homeless study. And to me, those two topics are related. I mean, we all know it. So I think that's, here again, that's the information we pull from this. Just another example is the plumbing. You know, they're putting out the bonding of CSST, excuse me, the new solar water heating systems that are out there. They even got a paper on through penetration fire systems. So these are documents that they've already produced and completed that we should be able to tag into and work from and work with also. So that is really my report. Like I said, I'm listening over there, but I'm just looking forward to more good stuff coming out of this group and working with somebody to continue it.
Great, thank you very much. Before we go to the staff report, I just wanted to recognize Director Jim Brown, who just joined us. Good morning. Not to put you on the spot. I didn't know if you wanted to address the group at all.
Just to say thank you. I'm so excited. I've only been to CFSI one time. And, you know, I'm ex-military. I thought I knew what brass looked like. Oh, boy. There is more brass in that room than a Kansas City fire engine. So thank you so much for the gracious invitation. And for me, you know, it's kind of like the last rock, because I'm done in September, you guys. So I'll be looking for my replacement. Thanks for the platform.
Great, thank you. All right, staff report, Carl.
All right, let's see if I can turn this thing around on myself. I'm going to keep it very brief today because this is your all's meeting. Thank you to everybody that traveled in. I did put a copy of the GR monthly update in the chat for those of you that are online. So if you want to go to that, take a look. Also, if you're monitoring here, you can just click on that. So I'm not really going to cover anything. There's a couple items that are coming up next that I will speak to. The biggest piece is just to remind everybody that April 15th is the deadline for ICC award submissions. That includes the former Fire Service Award, which is now the Robert W. Gain Fire Prevention Leadership Award, as well as the Innovation and Code Administration Award that we talked about yesterday. So remember that those two are out there. We're looking for those applications. They're due April 15th. And this group has weighed in pretty heavily, particularly on the fire award. In the past, we had Director McDaniels on last month to talk a little bit about that. So I would encourage you all to get together and maybe discuss a little bit on that in terms of group support and those kinds of things with Christine and Tim while you're here. So that's really my report, and I'll cover the other two items at your pleasure.
Great, thank you. All right, next item is ongoing business. Going back to the 32nd Annual National Fire and Emergency Services Symposium and Dinner, and I will throw that back to you, Carl, to explain a little bit more.
That's great. So coming up on April 6th and 7th, we've got the Congressional Fire Services Institute dinner that Director Brown was speaking about. So Director Sayers will be with us. President Davis will also be with us. My boss, Gabe Mazer, as well as a few. So let me think who's coming. I've got Mark Wassom's coming. Doug Nelson's coming, and I think there are a couple others as well too, but I also know Tim's going to be there, Chief Lane. So I don't think I missed anybody on that one. I know Marshal Desrochers will be there representing NASFM. So I'll have a little bit of help at the NAC meeting, the National Advisory Council meeting on Friday morning at 8 a.m. after a long night at the dinner. So looking forward to having you all there. If there are any questions on registration or logistics, let me know. And you should also have gotten, those of you that are coming, copy of the ICC expense report so that you can track your expenses and send those in afterward. So that's what I have.
Great, thank you. Next item, at our previous meeting, we had discussed and voted to provide a letter of support to IFC for Chief Michael O'Brien, who is running as a candidate for their second vice president position. That letter has been submitted, so we will see what happens with the election.
And there it is in case anybody wants to see that too.
Right, thank you. Next item is the annual awards process. As Carl mentioned, the deadline is coming up for submission. So we do have the 2 awards. The Robert W. Gain Fire Prevention Leadership Award. We have put forward names before, so please take into consideration if you want to discuss any possible names or any support for nominations, we can discuss it now. Again, it's something we've kind of talked about as something that's coming up, but now it's here. So if there's any discussion, I'm certainly open to having that discussion now, even if you want to put forward some names for consideration. Otherwise, if you can please get any supportive information or nominations to Tim and I and Carl as soon as you can, so that we can try to prepare a nomination packet if we choose to submit one based on the recommendations. And then same with the Innovation of Code Administration Award. Tim, not to put you on the spot, did you want to talk about that process? We talked about it a little bit yesterday in the in-person meeting. Turned out that agenda item really wasn't what we ended up supposed to be talking about. So that was an additional item we'll get to in a minute. But if you want to talk a little bit about the process that we're working in now.
Yeah, the Innovation Award, of course, is a joint award between the Building Membership Council and the Fire Service. In the past, it's been back and forth of who was going to lead that process. This year it's back to Fire Service. What we have done in the past is got a group of three people from each to sit down and review all the applications. A couple of years ago, we devised a scoring platform so that we can kind of even the field a little bit. So this year, we want to take that, get a little bit ahead of the game, because the evaluation form is good, but it still needs some tweaks and everything. So we will be looking for at least 3 people. I'm hoping I can consider myself one of those. So 2 others to work. I know Brian did it last year. That we can sit down, go over the form ahead of time a little bit, so we can be prepared for those packets when they do come in. Here again, it ranges everything from building officials to fire officials and their new programs. So it's really, you're taking a program and you're trying to score a program. We'll have those, I think we get those as soon as it closes. We'll have a couple months, couple meetings to deliberate back and forth. And then we come to a consensus. Go from there.
Great. So if you're interested in participating in that committee, please reach out to Tim and let him know, and we'll put you on the list. All right. Next item is new business, a recap from yesterday's meeting. We had some good discussion with regard to our work groups, like I mentioned earlier. We also talked about some ideas with regard to the website. The website, we, as Steve said earlier, we put forward some revision proposals to the communications group, ICC communications group, and we're waiting. They're undergoing a more enhanced full website review. So we're just waiting to hear back, and we're trying to have any kind of input that we possibly can to allow the web page and all of the other committee web pages to be user-friendly, and be something that visitors to the web pages can get information and go to links a lot more easier than what we're going through now. So more to come on that. We talked about Building Safety Month. There's a video that we have been asked to participate or help develop for Building Safety Month. We did it last year, so we're looking at doing that again. And we talked a little bit about the criteria. I'm going to be reaching back out to Sustainability Membership Council, who is leading this project, to try to get a little bit more information about parameters, and then we'll bring it back to the group so that we have some direction on if we're going to be producing it, if we're giving content to the membership council and they are going to be producing it, whatever those parameters are. So more to come back on that. And then one thing that did come up that I wanted to turn over to Tim was the fire official interviews. It was working with the Building Membership Council on code official interviews. So Tim, can you explain what that project is?
Yeah, and this came up at the continuity meeting, actually. Sustainability came in and was prepping everybody when they had all the membership councils there to kind of remind them about Building Safety Month. And one of the topics that came up was they were going to do interviews with the building official, code officials for how you got into the process. So it was more or less, they were going to do interviews of how did you become a code official? What drove you? And things like that. And I kind of reached out to Jason. I'm like, man, if you're going to do it for building officials, why not do it for the fire service too? Can we tag into this? And, I guess the seed was planted. So last night we got confirmation that we are going to be able to be part of that video that sustainability is creating. What they're asking for is it's going to be held the Thursday of Building Safety Week, which is the fire service day. But they're going to be asking for about 3 fire officials to be able to do this virtually, that they're going to be doing interviews. These interviews are basically going to be done for high school students, college students who are looking to get into the profession. So what we're going to be looking for and asking for is some representatives from this group to be able to be those interviewees. So it can be anything from, code, from fire code inspectors, fire marshals. We want to try to tend to stay away from the fire service itself, because I think we do a pretty good job of that. And just kind of key in on the fire official himself, the inspector, the fire marshal, and how do we get into the business? What are some of the, ideas that you have? What are some of the classes that you take? What should an average day look like? What can you expect? Those kind of things. So as more information comes out, just be aware that that's going to be forthcoming. Like I said, we're looking for about 3 or 4. It's going to take about an hour. It's going to be live streamed, and their sustainability is handling all that. But I just think it's another great, opportunity to get, our industry out there and just make people more aware of what we are doing.
Christine?
Yes.
So I would recommend, normally your building officials would get with your
governor or mayor or whatever to get a proclamation signed, if you can talk to them, get in uniform as a fire code official, whatever, and also get with that group when the proclamation is being signed, I highly recommend doing that. It helps show the relationship of one to the other.
No, that's good point. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks, Tim. So we will be reaching back out. I think it's a great opportunity, you know, to speak to students, and I believe we're getting the questions ahead of time,
Right.
so it's not like you're going to go in blind. But if you're interested in participating in that, we're going to be discussing it again. We'll bring it up at the next month's meeting, so think about it. And I think it was, we were talking about May 12th. I believe that's what it was. Don't hold me to that date, but I think that's around in that area. So we'll get back to everyone with what that date is. So that was all of the new business. I want to throw it out to the group, especially those that were here yesterday. If you had anything else that you wanted to comment on with what we talked about at yesterday's meeting that maybe we didn't cover already.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what we discussed as far as extending our meeting times and at the conferences?
Yeah, that's actually kind of a work in progress. We talked more about the work that we do in our standard meetings are about 2 hours. So, and what we're allotted under the official schedule for these in-person meetings is 2 hours. So we took the opportunity for those of us that were going to be here yesterday to be able to meet more. So we've already talked about how to either move that forward to get a little bit more information back to ICC about future scheduling and some time frames that maybe we can extend so that we can either get more hours or, you know, like a whole day or something that we're able to really drill down into some topics, be able to separate out into work groups so you can look in person to each other and work a little bit on your work group goals. So there's more information that's going to be coming out to that, but I think it really serves the Fire Service Membership Council very well for us to be in person and be able to have that time to work more collectively with each other and instead of just trying to, you know, cram everything into 2 hours. So, so yes, Carl.
So what I would suggest is, just because Director Sayers is here, Steve, I know you brought this up and I know Director Metz is also on the line too. I just suggest maybe you reiterate kind of what you threw out to the group yesterday based on the value of the, you know, kind of the travel. Mark, I think you had some comments on that too.
Sure.
And I think it would be really useful as our, you know, Randy in his position, I mean, he's always on our meetings, but Director Sayers is our board liaison. So maybe we could just articulate that for them.
Absolutely. We had a long discussion on this yesterday, and mostly what I was bringing up was the fact that we meet monthly, and we meet, our monthly meetings go at least 2 hours, if not longer, every month. And so for us to have the opportunity to meet face to face, 2 hours, generally speaking, is just really not enough time. Like I said, we do that every month as it is. And so my thought process is for us to be able to have a little bit more time. ICC is spending a lot of money to get us here. And for us to just meet for a couple hours, seems like, you know, it would be, the money spent would be better if we spent a little bit more time together and got some things accomplished. We could definitely put an agenda together of all the things we want to talk about. And as everybody, I think, in our group could say, is these face-to-face are invaluable. As much information as we pass between each other and the things we get, you know, get accomplished, we want to work on and that type of stuff. So we just kind of ran through some different scenarios, maybe a 4 hour on Saturday and a 4 hour on Sunday type of thing. or whatever, just some possible proposals, but we certainly would like to propose that we get a little bit more time together than just the 2 hours.
Could I ask you to do this, Steve?
Yeah.
Could you put something in an email?
Absolutely.
And get that to me so I can, make that presentation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Be more than happy to do that. I certainly can't say that we absolutely would be able to get that much time reserved, but, I think it's deserves some, good look and maybe some validation to, you make a good point. Spend a lot of money to get everybody here.
Correct.
Why not get a little more out of it?
Yeah, correct. And like I said, it's invaluable for us to meet face to face. And like I said, you can look at our track record. We meet every month. And we meet every month for over 2 hours usually, and because of the topics we like to discuss and want to work on. And, it's kind of, we were talking about this last night. It's, it's kind of our DNA in the fire service to take things on and work on them and accomplish stuff. And so that's kind of the goal of our committee. And so, yeah, it'd be nice if we could have a little bit more face-to-face time.
And Jim, just for your understanding too, and the other folks in the room, when you look around this table, just because I happen to know as staff liaison where everybody is, of course, you're coming across the country for the board meetings. We've got Doug came out of North Dakota. Mike had a drive up from Vermont. Crystal is here from California, whom you know, as well as Aaron. Tim and I are in the Washington, D.C. area, so it's a quick run for us. Christine and Steve, Mark's are both from California. Jonathan, you're in Iowa. Mark's in Kansas, and you're in Ohio, right, Brian? So, just to give you an idea where everybody's coming in from, they've literally spent more time in the air and getting back and forth to the airport than the opportunity that we had to meet informally yesterday and all the time that we have this morning. So, and not to, I don't want to, certainly I want to be appropriate, not inflammatory, but I mean, that is a big investment of time and money. And that's what I wanted to, have you be able to hear from Steve. Mark commented in a very similar fashion yesterday. And, again, Tim and I are some of the fortunate ones in that 45 minutes for us to get on the airplane for the most part out of Maryland and Virginia to be able to get here. So
Even have a little more presentation time too, because that was really good.
Yeah. Well, and we do that every month. That's the beginning of our meeting, and so, yeah.
Yeah, and this council, I mean, is the one that we meet every month. I don't know that, with the exception of building being pretty close on our heels, I don't know that others are able to meet that often and do as much work as we do.
I'd say sustainability is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that discussion.
Thank you.
Anyone else had any discussion?
Christine, Rob Buxton, if I can, for just a minute. So just wanted to add that to that point, our working groups are all virtual meetings. An expanded amount of meeting time on a weekend like this might provide opportunity for them to get together and leverage projects. And I think that's an obvious comment, but I think that we shouldn't minimize that, right? And as we try to meet our goals for the year, I just want to add on to that because I think it is, to Carl's point, my travel got screwed up for this weekend, but, it would have been a 45-minute flight for me also. But, to invest that time, which really 45 minutes flight really turns into like a 3-hour operation, right, between the airports. So, again, opportunity for work in person would be great.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for that comment. Okay, if nothing else, we'll move on. Before I talk about the next meeting, any questions or comments from the audience? So this would be a time for anyone that be welcome to hear from you with any questions, comments.
Christine, I did
Yes.
have one surprise. During the discussion last night, and then Director Brown did bring it up again this morning, that we should probably be, and I'm not sure how this would look or how we would do this as a committee, but it's probably time for us to be looking for a candidate to run for the board that we would like to back and support and that type of stuff. And like I said, I think that as far as our committee, it's probably our responsibility to do that. Maybe, you know, Randy might have some comments on that too, but I think that, like I said, I'm not quite sure what that would look like, what that would, you know, how that would happen with that, you know, but I think it's something that maybe we need to maybe discuss a little bit more in a meeting in the future and think about that. And maybe there's somebody out in the audience that has a, you know, is thinking about doing something like that, making a run at the board. And so somebody that we can support and back.
I think you'll see those coming in the next few months. I mean, it's typically during the summertime, as you know who those candidates are going to be. And not to say that, you know, if you know somebody who's interested in running, that you can approach them and, you know, follow up with what their, you know, thoughts and processes are. But knowing that during the summer, we will know more. And most of the time, those people running for the board will be reaching out to us to look for those support letters and support opportunities. So just, I agree, you know, it's nice to, if you have somebody in mind, you know, that may be thinking about it, on the fence, has discussed it, you know, reach out and, you know, find out a little bit more intention. But our summertime, we will definitely hear more, know more, and kind of have better direction. And that's just lots of experience talking here, that's all. And I'm sure Jim is right there too, so.
Yeah, you know, the thing is it's kind of a responsibility for ICC members, particularly board members, to find somebody to fill those seats, because you know, that's our future, and it's our responsibility to take care of that.
And we actually had a goal several years ago. I know Randy had promoted it. I'm surprised Randy hasn't chimed in, he might be off. That we were looking to create that availability or that promotion of people from the fire service to make sure we kind of had a voice on the board. Right now, we're very fortunate to have multiple voices on the board. But, you know, as time keep, you know, time's out, we need to continue to look for those people.
Yep.
Great. And Randy, we see that your hand is raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out there that, you know, finding a candidate from, you know, the fire service or the plumbing, mechanical, whatever area that you're looking to emphasize there, you know, that's a years long process in finding the candidate that you want to promote, the candidate that you think can get elected, and getting them in the right positions to get the exposure to all of the membership. And I think that's where the fire service is always going to have a challenge there, is because we are a small portion of the ICC general membership. We really have to find that candidate that's going to be able to get out there and get the exposure within the building officials and the plumbing mechanical side. And it doesn't matter where that individual comes from. We currently have myself and Angie that represent the fire service on a full-time basis. We've had other people, you know, Stuart Tom that represented before. I think that's what Steve was kind of speaking to, was not candidates in general, but a fire service specific candidate that can really speak to our interests and, you know, who that is nationally. Do they have strong state support? Have they served within their own, you know, home chapters in the leadership there? It's not something necessarily that you can very easily just decide, you know, hey, I'm going to run for the board. I've never been involved in anything before, but I think this is a great idea, and expect to get elected. You know, I had to do it twice. I learned a lot the first time, and most candidates have to run more than once before they're successful. So it is a process, and I concur with Steve that the fire service needs to start thinking forward and determine who that individual is that they want to see representing them in the future, and then provide them the opportunities to serve now in other leadership positions before they decide now is the time to make my formal run.
Great, thank you, Randy. Any other comments? Yes.
So with that in mind, I've been recruiting an individual for about 2 years. I think he's going to run this time. His name is Jonathan Huddleston. He used to be the Columbus building official in Georgia. Had a great relationship with him with State Codes Advisory Committee when I was state fire marshal with that group. He's now in Tampa, Florida. And he's one of the emerging leaders. So I just want to let you know that name will probably be coming to this committee, and I would highly recommend that individual be considered.
Great, thank you. All right. So want to go to good of the order. I have one item. It is a kind of a standing thing that is done with and for the chairs of this committee when they either term out or resign, and it's a show of appreciation that the membership council gives to this person for their time and leadership in the membership council. And so we had Randy Metz that was the chair of the Fire Service Membership Council, and then with his election onto the board, resigned from the Membership Council. So we wish that you were here in person, Randy, but we understand that you're not, but we still wanted to present this gift to you. So I'd like to,
We get everybody behind us.
oh, yeah.
Why don't you guys, everybody come
around.
around behind us here, and I'll put the camera on the right way so he can see this.
So I don't think that Randy is very secretive about this fact, but he is an avid Dodgers fan. So what we did, Randy, is we got you this, can you see it? It's a Dodgers jersey, specific to vets. So we hope you wear this with much success for Dodgers. I'm not a Dodgers fan.
As much as it pained me to get that.
For Randy, right? But meanwhile, it's like, I'm not a Dodgers fan, but I wish you great wear with this. And thank you very much for your leadership, your support, everything you've done for the membership council, and wear this in good health. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. It's even better that it's coming from a Giants fan.
And we'll be mailing this out to you soon so that you can be able to wear it for the start of the regular season.
Thank you all.
All right, so that was my item for the good of the order. Does anyone, either in person or virtually, do you have anything for the good of the order? Nothing?
Open time to talk.
Yeah,
15 minutes left.
15 minutes.
I'll just mention, because I'm, of course, listening to building membership, that they've spent most of their meeting time talking about their charter or chapter revisions. So they have quite a few of them that they want to propose. So there'll be more forthcoming.
Perfect. Does anyone have anything that you'd like to discuss in the remaining minutes that we haven't already discussed, or you want to elaborate on a little bit more?
Robbie, you're going to be quiet?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Here, if you got anything you want to add from your order.
Just NFP's conference next one is coming up in June. We'll see if you folks involved as well in person.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm not going to belabor it. So with that, I will call for entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Buxton.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second was from Mark. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you to those who have joined us virtually from your own time zones. Thank you, everyone here meeting in person. Looking forward to seeing you virtually on April 21st at 1:30 Eastern. And we will get these minutes out to you once everything is prepared. So safe travels to all of you who are in person, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. All right, bye-bye, everyone.